I made this presentation today about the holy anointing oil used in the Temple of Jerusalem in ancient times because I wanted to understand the proper use of cannabis. And many people abuse this today. Many people misuse cannabis. Many people waste their time, their lives, their money in using it when they actually don't need to. And it has a purpose though. And that's why God told us to use it in a certain way. So let's go ahead and look into that. In Exodus chapter 30, we have the description of the holy anointing oil. In verse 23, it says, "Take for yourselves the finest spices, myrrh, cinnamon, fragrant cane." Verse 24, it says cassia and olive oil. And it also gives the measurements. In verse 25, it says to make the holy anointing oil out of these. And I want you to look specifically at fragrant cane and how it's translated in multiple different English translations. And you can look at this for yourself. It's sometimes translated as fragrant cane. But there are many other translations for this because it's not definite what it is. In fact, fragrant cane is a very general term. So let's look at the proportions and the ingredients. So I took the measurements and I made them into a metric conversion. So we have myrrh, cinnamon, cassia, olive oil, and then the fragrant cane. We're just going to go ahead and consider it cannabis for now, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. So we have 10% of the holy anointing oil being cannabis, or what we would say fragrant cane from the translation. The instructions on how to use it are very clear. It's used as not just a spiritual, but probably also a physical sanitation measure for all of the tools, utensils in the temple. And this is because of the animal sacrifices, I'm assuming. So after the sacrifices, you have before and after, I'm assuming, you'd have the holy anointing oil used as a cleansing measure, not just for ritual or spiritual purity, as a symbol of purity, but also perhaps as physical purity as well. So the commandments of God often have a physical purpose, not just a spiritual or ritual purpose. And we can see examples of this when it refers to how you should enter the temple. Yes, it's a ritual. In entering the temple, you should be immersed, right, in a mikvah, and it doesn't always get rid of the dirt of the body, right? Because the mikvah, it's more of a ritual, spiritual symbol of purity. And so, yes, you could technically be still physically dirty after going through the immersion or the mikvah, but it does also help to wash you. So it limits the use of the holy anointing oil to the priesthood only. And this is important because it means that this was regulated. It's a regulated oil. It's a regulated substance. So only the priesthood could use it to cleanse the temple and also to anoint whatever they need to. Also the people, okay? It says, whoever shall mix any like it, or whoever puts any of it on a foreigner shall be cut off from his people. So this is an oil used for both things and people. And that's really important to note that it's regulated. Jehovah gave a strict commandment that this oil must not be used by others, especially a foreigner. That means someone that has not made a covenant with God or an unbeliever. So, by the letter of the law, no person today has the authority to produce this exact proportion of oil unless his ancestry can be traced back to Aaron. So we can look at different examples of these specific instructions or regulations or restrictions being broken in the attempt to look at the big picture or the spirit of the law. For example, David and his men ate the bread that was not permitted to be eaten unless it was by the priesthood, because it was considered holy or set apart for them. And so there are instances in which perhaps this oil could be used to help other people and not necessarily by the priesthood class. But if the proportions are changed at all, then it would no longer be this holy anointing oil, and it could be freely used without breaking God's instructions. So it's important that Yeshua himself said, don't judge by appearance, but do what is lawful, meaning do good, right? So it was a woman named Sula Bunet, I don't know how to pronounce that name, I'm sorry, was a Polish anthropologist. She was studying Judaic customs, and she was the one that, in her book, tracing one word through different languages, made the assumption or made the proposition that the word cannabis or cannabis was actually hemp, and it had some connection with different geographic regions in Western Asia. So it was the Hebrew University that corroborated this woman's findings, that the Old Testament word, and I don't know Hebrew, so if I mispronounce this, I'm sorry, kinebuizen, literally meant hemp blossom, and it was the fruit or the buds of the cannabis plant. And so that's a general, quick summary of what I have learned about the holy anointing oil.